Hi there, and welcome to the Sorry I Like This podcast. I'm your host for today, Caleb, and then I am joined by my fabulous co-host Ezra. How are you today?
I am doing great, Caleb. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain too much. Other than actually, this isn't complaining at all. This is celebrating. I'm just gonna go right into it. Today is a big day. It's a big day for for my child self of you know games that I never thought I'd see the day again, and all of
Yep.
a sudden has come back into the limelight. And I'm really happy that they were able to get this back going. Um, you know, it real. I'll get into a little bit of how my feelings towards it are a little bit later, but I just got to say it's really cool to see EA College Football 25 back. It's just
Yeah.
really cool. Um, and I it, it's fully back in full swing. I haven't played it. Ezra, I don't believe you got the deluxe edition or anything.
No, I did not.
Okay. All right. Well, the I should say we're recording this in between the deluxe edition and the actual release of the game. So some people are playing it right now. I'm not playing it. I probably won't get the game day one just because I know how these sports games trend,
Yeah.
but trend in terms of prices, and I don't. It's not the season yet, so I'm not really too focused on getting it day one. But that's a little bit besides the point. It is really cool to see though that they did bring this game back. The interesting thing is that the reason why, if I'm not mistaken, the reason why it got canceled was because of the paying athletes controversy, and the game was a part of that casualty. Um, because it was part of a larger conversation, and I think that's the reason. There were several. I think there's a several reasons why the game got canceled, but that was the series got canceled, but that was one of them. Um, and I never thought I'd see the day again, and I know that I don't know. I'd say a few years ago they made some sort of settlement towards that,
Yeah.
especially for and again, this is a much broader discussion within this game itself, because this was a settlement among other things, and EA was able to bring back the franchise. But what I want to stress this, what I love that EA did, instead of just coming out with one right away, they waited years,
Yeah.
probably at least four, to um yeah, I want to say it was at least four since its initial announcement, but probably 5 to 6 years since
Hmm.
they could, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's, if my brain's not mistaken, that's how I remember it, at least. And they took time to actually really flesh out, from what I'm seeing, the game. There's a lot of nice features to it. Um, Much more than with Madden games. And I know this is not the same publisher, but with 2K as well, like any kind of sports game, these yearly releases, there is not much change in between each year.
Yeah.
With this, and we'll see, in the future, now that they got things down, it might be the same thing every year again. But what makes this game so special, at least to me, is the fact that they took time and really I'm trying not to see too much into it, but from what I've heard, it looks like they've put a lot of effort into it, and I gotta say I'm impressed. And for me, not having the highest bar against EA, I'm actually pretty shocked that I was impressed with what they've done so far. It's gotten good reviews.
That is surprising.
I can't wait to play it. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to play it day one. Who knows if the word of mouth is like it is right now? I might cave very soon. Who knows? But yeah, I think it'll be. I never thought I would really talk about so much about sports games on this podcast, only because they're the same thing every year. So I don't know if I'll ever talk about sports games again. They're the same thing every year, mostly, I should say. So this is kind of a weird situation for me where it's like I'm very happy about it. It's just like a special moment that I might not ever get again.
Yeah.
Because college football could go yearly releases. I don't know if they are, but I would guess they are. The thing is, though, I think I will report back to you eventually about how I felt about this game.
Okay.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts on it, Ezra? How is the resurgence of college football taking?
How are
you feeling about
it? That's an interesting question. So you should know I literally had no idea this was happening until you brought it to my attention just now. I think it's I think you're right. I think it's interesting that games like your EA college footballs or your your NCAA sports, whatever they are, tend to be in limbo a lot, whereas Madden every year, even if EA wasn't making the games, Madden would still come out every year. To the point where there was that one IGN review where it was the Switch version of Madden. It was Madden 22 or something was exactly the same as Madden 21 or something like that. It was something like that. And yeah, I just think that's interesting. I think it says something about kind of the volatility of college sports in a way, right now I've heard more about a WNBA player than I have a college football player. And maybe that's just because I don't pay attention to sports, but Caitlin Clark has broken through into the mainstream conversation in a way that we're just not talking about college sports right now.
Right.
Combine that with the, let's call them, questionable ethics of college sports, we don't have to get into it, but just the it can just be a question mark in a lot of people's heads. I think it's a little kind of risky to be getting back into the kind of college sports game. And so I
honestly thought it would never happen.
Yeah.
It became a little bit. So when they said that they were trying to work on this game, I was already working at. I've already said this before on the podcast. I used to work at GameStop for a brief amount of time, and I gotta say, number one question when, especially when it came to like the Madden crowd, you know, the number one question they would be asking it be like, when's college football coming back? And it became a little bit more of a running joke. Sometimes I'd be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't think it's happening. I'll be honest with you. Or it's years down the line. You know, I don't see it happening in the foreseeable future. And really, I wasn't really expecting it to come out this year, to be honest with you. I just, like you said, there's so much risk and
Yeah.
ethical discussion that I just never thought it. I just, after 14 ended, I just never thought it would. I thought we would never get another game. But it is interesting to say, this is the truth. If you look at how rare that game is,
Huh.
I can tell you, I got that. I got that game. Well, I didn't get that game, but they, to this day, it might not be this case any longer, but resale value of that game is still probably around full price.
Yeah.
100%. Let's just take a gander real quick. I'm just gonna say,
Well, and even if it's not full, I would say it's probably more than full price.
probably.
I would
Okay, let's.
say,
Jesus. Amazon.com for $280.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, and then it's probably more on eBay. Like,
pre-owned at GameStop is $75.
GameStop probably doesn't have
Walmart,
it, though.
yeah, Walmart has it for 110. That's just a quick search. Just wild to me. This game,
Hmm.
I mean, people would go back to it because there wasn't any other game out as far as college football. And that's the most recent one. So it's just crazy to me. You know, it's just something that I wanted to really talk about. Um and yeah, I got to say I'm pretty excited. Ezra, do you have any final thoughts or anything on
You
college
know,
football?
I'm really interested to see what comes of this. I wonder if it will, cuz if I'm not mistaken, there aren't really a lot of other college sports franchises kind of happening right now. Um Not that I
No,
can
I
think
think that
of.
was the end.
Yeah.
As far as those type of things, I think that was the end. I don't think any other. I think this is like the
Yeah.
starting point. If I wouldn't be surprised if basketball is next.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to say. I wonder if this is kind of a test bed for
mm,
future potential releases. And if so, are they going to be able to differentiate themselves enough to get those sales, or is there another kind of excuse me, is there another kind of thing they can do to really make that a success? But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think it's really cool that they're bringing it back. I just, I wonder how well it'll do. That's the only question that I have.
So one last thought I have on it because it just jogged a memory real quick. You know, I kind of wish they could, but I also understand with contracts and all that stuff, they probably couldn't. But like EA is also shooting themselves in the foot right now because college football is going to be bigger, way bigger than Madden this year. And I can
Hmm.
confidently say that. I really think Madden is just going to be overshadowed. I know Madden comes out a month after that, but they really should have just taken a year off with Madden, let them ride the success of college football and take the year off. Because the other thing to note, and this is a little random fact, Madden 14, there was no Madden 14. You know what Madden 14 was?
Hmm.
I think it was the 25th anniversary of Madden. As a little bit of a fun fact, so they called it Madden 25 then. So they had an out. They literally
Yeah.
had an out this year to just skip a year, and I think that would have worked. But honestly, it probably contracts with the NFL
Yeah.
probably prevents them to do that. So that's kind of the thing. That's what I kind of thought about that. But uh, kind of transitioning here. Um,
Yeah.
I want to talk about other forgotten games. And this time, I want to talk about forgotten games in Summer Games Fest this year because
Yeah.
I want to say, and it's not just Summer Games Fest, the showcase in itself, but just now that we've gone through pretty much, we're mid July now. Now that we've gone through pretty much all the gaming showcases for the summer, and we're halfway through the year, I think it's important to note these games um, that are kind of forgotten or we haven't heard anything about it, and it's kind of like I'm very interested to see when these things will pop up next because I
Yeah.
really can't even tell you. Like the ones the stuff that I'm going to mention, I really can't tell you when we'll see it. So I want to. So this is like we're calling it Caleb's three forgotten studios at Summer Games Fest. So this isn't all on Jeff Keighley. This is on Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, etc. Although it's mostly Sony. I'm not gonna lie. um, I'll dive into that in a second. But as far as first thing, well, I guess I'll just talk about Sony real quick. We didn't get anything from Sony this year as far as first party studios. Um, and one of the things that I want to mention is something that we do know that is down the pipeline, and I'm really shocked that we didn't get to hear anything about it during Summer Games Fest because I think it is on the horizon. Even if it wasn't like these games are like examples of even if they're not coming out in 2024, I'm shocked I'm shocked that they didn't showcase it because I would assume they're coming out in 2025.
Okay.
This makes me doubt it type of situation. So
Yeah.
really it's a conversation of when do you actually think we'll see this stuff next? So first thing I got to say is I was shocked to see Wolverine just completely be
Yeah. Nowhere.
un-
Nowhere to be found.
yeah, nowhere. Especially saying we have Deadpool and Wolverine coming out within a few weeks right now.
Yeah.
It would have been in my opinion, it would have been great timing for that. I know it's a different actor and all that stuff, but uh you got to ride that trail of just the hype. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people are really hyped for Deadpool and Wolverine you know, and it's from Insomniac. But the thing is that it's kind of selfish, right? It's kind of selfish that we haven't heard anything from Insomniac about the game because we went from Spider-Man 2018, Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man 2, pretty much all back to back. Oh, and Spider-Man Miles Morales.
No, let
In
me
between.
let me pull up the Insomniac library for you, just so we can their gamography. Um, yeah, 2016 Ratchet and Clank, 2018 Marvel's Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
2020 Spider-Man Miles Morales, 2021 Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, 2023 Marvel's Spider-Man 2, like insane.
Yeah. It's to me it's wild to me. I mean, even if they just threw in another teaser, I
Yeah.
think it's this is like one of those type of situations where the time was absolutely right to showcase it and they didn't. And I've been trying to like wrap my brain around it. From a Sony side of things, I can understand, they don't want to showcase anything this year because they don't have anything big this year. I get it. That side of things makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But for Marvel and the development team and Insomniac, it's just weird. To me, it's really weird to be like, I'm not used to them being quiet.
Yeah, I mean,
Because even like Spider-Man 2 was, the first reveal of that was, I think, 2 years before it actually came out. I want to see the reveal
yeah.
to release timeline too, because that's a big factor into what I actually
Well,
am also thinking.
so we got Wolverine was revealed at the same time as Spider-Man 2.
Hmm.
Um the other thing I would say is if you look at Insomniac's release cadence over the past few years, they've released a game every 2 years, with the exception of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart right after Miles Morales. But then 2 years after that was Spider-Man 2. So, like, I would be. So, like, I agree. I think it's kind of weird that we didn't see anything. If I had to guess, my guess is that we will see Wolverine at the Game Awards, actually. Because I bet Wolverine is a holiday release. Um,
Probably.
so that would be my speculation, I guess. I mean, you have to factor in they canceled that the
Oh, that's
Spider-Man
I
multiplayer
forgot about that.
game.
Yep.
They they suffered layoffs.
Yep.
I mean, everybody everywhere suffered layoffs.
Nobody was safe on that.
Yeah. The other thing, except for Nintendo, Nintendo didn't lay anybody off.
Yep.
Well, no, I think. Wait, no, maybe that was Square Enix.
No, Square definitely did lay off.
But
I
even
think it was
then, Square,
Nintendo.
yes, Nintendo didn't do anything. Anyways, uh, canceled Spider-Man multiplayer game. They suffered layoffs. Spider-Man 2 cost $300 million to develop, which is a lot of money.
That's
Um,
insane to me.
yeah,
Like, it's just insane to think about.
like I think. Let me look at this real quick. Yeah, like it sold. Spider-Man 2 sold really well. Like I'm not worried about Insomniac really, but
Hmm.
it's safe to say like their plans have been kind of derailed, and you know, I doubt Wolverine has been canceled,
Mm-mm.
but at the same time I think it's in my mind, if Wolverine isn't at the Game Awards, that's kind of an indication to me that something changed, right? Because like um, Spider-Man 2, I remember when it came out that it cost $300 million to make. I think that was a really big wake up call to a lot of people. Like, oh wow, games are getting really expensive, um,
Absolutely.
and because like Spider-Man 2 isn't the biggest game to ever come out, right? Super high quality, right? Super I mean, that was one of the most fun times I've ever had platinuming a game. But I platinumed that game in like 22 hours, something like that. 24 hours. Um like it's not an especially large game, right? Again, super high quality. I almost prefer it that way.
Hmm.
But if that costs $300 million, right? That's a wake up call. So like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from. Where it's like, yeah, where is Wolverine? At the same time, I would not be shocked to hear that Sony has made some changes. I guess. And we'll see. I mean, we're going to get a Spider-Man 3. They're going to finish the trilogy.
Absolutely.
Like I would not worry about that. I would not worry about other Marvel Insomniac projects. I think that's going to be uh I think that's just a creative um like buffet they could just go to, right? Like the Insomniac team has such a good grasp on those characters, and and like so I wouldn't be worried about it, but I also would say like, oh, it's possible that uh stuff. Yeah, I guess that's the long and the short of it is I bet some stuff changed, and maybe we'll see it at the Game Awards.
No. No, I think Game Awards is actually a pretty safe bet for that. Um, hopefully. Although we could be seeing it as soon as TGS. To me, it would be really weird for it to show up at TGS, but I know PlayStation has something cooking
Yeah.
um, over there. So, but the other thing I want to mention, uh, I think, I think we've covered Wolverine really, really well. Um, the other thing I want to mention, as far as game studios that were kind of just absent, and they this one has been absent for a surprising amount of time. Um, and yes, they've shown up, but that the stuff that they're doing doesn't count in my eyes. um, and that seems a little mean, but it's true. You're not getting a pass for it because I am going to be asking what's going on with Naughty Dog. I'm I just
Well,
got to say it. You know what I mean? I will say The Last of Us TV show has been a huge hit. Very happy with that. Um, we know that they're making something, right? They're making at least
Yeah.
one project um, that they've been in development for. I want to say they've been talking that they've been in development on a game for at least 2 years, but I want to say they've been, in my eyes, I would imagine they've been making a game since Last of Us Part Two. That would be me. Like that would be what my guess is. Um, that came out in 2020, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's either 2020 or 2019, so 4 or 5 years.
So,
It's just go ahead.
yeah, well, I just wanted to add some context to what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Cuz I largely agree with you. So uh since '07 with Drake's Fortune,
Mhm.
um Naughty Dog has had a pretty consistent release cadence of about once every 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, that was kind of shaken up because in 2013 they released The Last of Us.
Yeah.
2014 they released Last of Us Left Behind, and 2014 they also released the PS4 version of The Last of Us.
Mhm.
Um, but then 2 years after that, they released Uncharted 4, um, and then uh, and then things start to get a little shaky because uh, a year later they released Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, which was that kind of
Mhm.
sort of like epilogue chapter to the Uncharted saga. Um, maybe I'm wrong about that. And then 3 years after that, so
Mhm.
4 years after the last full game was The Last of Us Part Two, and then since then, the only things they've released are the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection, which is the PS5 and PC version of the Uncharted
Yeah.
quadrilogy, and then also uh, The Last of Us Part 1 on PS5 and PC, which, in fairness, was a full graphical and gameplay overhaul of the first Last of Us game.
Mhm.
And then also the PS5 version of The Last of Us Part 2. So, like, it's been a while since Naughty Dog released a whole game, a whole new game. Um, I would also add that um, they were working on a multiplayer game,
Yeah.
and then Bungie came in and poo pooed it, so they canceled it. Um,
Yeah. I forgot about the canceled game. That's the only one that I could see really put a wrench in their plans. But
yeah,
at the same time, at the same time, Naughty Dog has never been good with their multiplayer. It's kind of like they tried it with Uncharted. It didn't work with Uncharted. It's hard
yeah,
for me, and I think they even did it for the first Last of Us too, if I'm not mistaken. It's
yeah. I
hard for
mean, they
me.
released a. I think they released the multiplayer. Did they release the multiplayer for Last of Us Two?
No, I think that was the project that they were working on. It stemmed from part two.
Yeah, that's right. They released. Yeah. They canceled the Last of Us Two multiplayer, but then
Hmm.
they. Oh, the remastered version had like this roguelike mode. That's what I'm thinking of. Never mind. Sorry. Keep going.
Gotcha. It's just weird to me. We don't know the direction Naughty Dog's going, and I honestly, Neil Druckmann's been playing coy on the matter
Yeah.
too. He keeps going, "We're developing something," but he can't. He doesn't outright deny Last of Us Part 3, he doesn't outright deny. Well, actually, he did say Part 3's in development now, I think.
Yeah,
I think he
he's
did end up and say that.
he's
But
been
he also said in the
pretty.
same breath that
Yeah,
that's probably not next at the same time.
yeah, yeah. Which is curious. I wonder what else
Right.
they could be working on.
And he's been coy about Uncharted, like another
Yeah,
Uncharted. Like, he's just not outright denying things, and it's just like,
yeah,
I know you're cooking, but like, I don't smell anything yet. That's my kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Absolutely.
And to me, it's kind of weird that we have gone yet another year. I mean, granted, there's still a half a year left, but to me, the time to have showcased something is usually during this time, and it's just
Yeah,
it's really weird to me. I would not have expected this long of a gap from Naughty Dog. I thought Naughty Dog was a sure bet.
yeah.
This going like not
Hmm.
as we got closer to the event, but like I thought we would get something from Naughty Dog this summer. I did. Um, do you have any more final thoughts on Naughty Dog?
Yeah. Neil Druckmann, try not to say something that ticks me off. Challenge impossible. Um, yeah, I think. Yeah, I think Naughty Dog's in kind of a weird spot. Like they have to know that Last of Us 2 was not like, even though they won Game of the Year for that, like
Mm-hmm.
that's not, it's not like what you want. It's not the kind of reception you want. Um and I think yeah, I think you know, I just remember thinking about how like 2020 was such a weird year cuz like um COVID, that's a given. But also um like you're looking at a year that includes uh Final Fantasy VII remake. Um, they, I'm just looking at, Pokemon Go came out that year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, I'm,
Ghost of Tsushima came out that year as well.
yeah, like a lot of games came out and were great, but nothing like, but besides The Last of Us, like what what came out that is gonna like is that like big game of the year contender, right? Like you and I would say Final Fantasy VII remake, but like you and I both know we're kind of in the
Oh,
minority
during
on
that
that.
time, I knew for sure it wasn't going to win, but I was
Yeah.
like, I was pushing for it because it was my game of the year. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was
it,
both our games of the year, but it was just like but I think like The Last of Us Part 2 coming out to not to like this kind of hostile, volatile reception. Like some people love it, some people think it's like the best thing on the planet, some people think it's the worst thing ever and it like killed their children. Um Yeah, it's super uh how do I put this? It's like it's one of those things where it's like Naughty Dog had a slam dunk, and even though they kind of technically won, they kind of lost in the larger conversation kind of thing, right? So
Mhm.
I think the last thing I'll say is I think it's super important for Naughty Dog to get this next whatever this next game that they're making is. They got to get it right.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I hope beyond hope they uh, they really take a look at themselves and are just like, we need to have some fun like that. I want them to have some
Yeah.
fun because like The Last of Us has taken its toll on that studio. I think, like, regardless of your opinions about the games, right, like regardless of how you feel about them, like that's got to be a really dour thing to be working on day in and day
Yeah.
out. And so like I really hope that like whatever's next for them is just a lot of fun. um and we'll see. We'll
I
see.
full 100% agree with it. With that. Like, I would really love to see either an original IP that they come up with that's extremely fun. I think I'd settle for an Uncharted 5. That's just me though. I really love the Uncharted games. But even those are
Yeah.
fun. Like, those are just genuinely like a fun little action
Yeah.
adventure
Yeah,
game.
they're
Like,
romps.
so yeah, I mean, I think ever since The Last of Us came out in 2013, I feel like that was a turning point for Naughty Dog as a studio, and it's just weird. It's really weird to me not hearing from them this year, and it's not out of the question yet, but it's first big sign I would say that we're
Yeah.
probably not getting Naughty Dog this year.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, we would have heard about that a while ago. I think.
I think
If
so too. But do you have any final thoughts or anything?
no, yeah, that's it from me on Naughty Dog at least.
So now I'm going to talk about the true inspiration of this little topic I have here today. And part of me is like, maybe I should have just made this a full topic, and not included anything else. But then it kind of just started this larger idea in my head. There's a few games that I wanted to talk about. I mean, that was missed at Summer Games Fest. But I did want to talk about the true missing link of it all. Um, I gotta say, what's going on with Kingdom Hearts?
Yeah.
And I don't mean it in the context of I don't think anything's canceled.
Yeah.
It's
But it's just
just
like what's going on, yeah.
exactly. I'm wanting to know where we are at as far as development stages on everything. Um, and I guess I'll talk about Missing Link first, just because that's a mobile game, and we've kind of talked about it before on this podcast, so I don't think we'll talk about it too much. But I really do think Missing Link um, may not be coming out until maybe winter, and that's really sad to say. I know that they were targeting this summer to really really get it out. They wanted it to where it was warm outside for worldwide type of situation.
Yeah.
But I don't see it happening. I really don't. with the beta delays that were happening, I know there was the pre-registration like cards that went out, but it's still not. You're still unable to pre-register. I think there was something along the lines where they just, with the betas, them taking in the feedback of the betas and all that stuff, I think it's a high chance that we won't be seeing Missing Link for a while, for a few months at least. As far as any kind of details, as far as release goes. But then I got to thinking. Actually, I'll tune this to you, Ezra, before I transition
Yeah.
into the tinfoil hat type of conspiracy that web of conspiracy that I. So, what are your thoughts on Missing Link being living up to its name?
Yeah, where do I start? Well, for one thing, I'm a little surprised you didn't say anything about Sucker Punch. I was expecting Sucker Punch to be
I was
in
going to
this.
say Sucker Punch, but they have they don't have the greatest track record of as far as releases like the other two studios and
That's true.
this studio. So
That's true.
I agree with you, and I thought about including it on this list, but I was just like, for time, I wanted to focus on a little bit more of this stuff. So I was kind of. It is an interesting thought though. When we would get what's next for Sucker Punch.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, where to start? So, Square Enix has gone through a restructuring. I think that's definitely got to factor into some of this stuff. I think part of me wonders if, like, because it's clear, like, from seeing some of the footage of the gameplay of Missing Link and just the general vibe, I guess, of the game is like, I wonder if this game was kind of a fool's errand. In the sense of like that's trying to get Kingdom Hearts 3 style combat onto a phone. And I'm not saying that's impossible. In fact, I would be like genuinely surprised if that was possible, if that was impossible. What I'm wondering is, like, is it too resource intensive? Because, like, you look at a game like even a game like Honkai Star Rail, right, which runs on PC, phone, and phones, and PS5, like, that game took a lot of time to develop. Hoyoverse didn't just, like, poop it out, right? Like, it wasn't just like a simple release. It took a while. And, like, I think a genuine question in my mind is, like, okay, are they just having a hard time developing this game because of the mission statement, which is to, like, do Pokemon Go with Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 3 combat, like, because that's the ostensibly what they're going for. And yeah, I just think it's like it's one of those things where it's like if you could do it easily, then it's worth it. But if you can't do it easily, then it's like, oh, then you have a
Yeah.
rough road ahead of you. Yeah. So, anyways, I wanna hear what your conspiracies are regarding this, though.
Well, you helped bring up a lot of points that I was going to point out. The first thing I want to say though is this is a game that is product of a game that was announced way too early in development, and as far as a mobile game for its
Yeah.
ambition, right?
Yeah.
When it was announced, I was under the impression that this game was far into development,
Me too.
and that wasn't the case. We had betas that were constantly getting delayed. I feel like this beta, this most recent beta that we had, they only put it out because they promised it, and they were trying
That's
to avoid
possible.
suspicion of another delay. I think this is a tinfoil hat theory going on right here. I think this has gone into a. We talked about Square Enix's restructuring as well. I think the whole entire Kingdom Hearts lineup has been restructured. Um, Not drastically, but you and I have talked about and speculated a while that there could be another game in between Missing Link and 4.
Yeah.
I've been kind of thinking about that. And while I think that is still highly, highly possible at this point, because Kingdom Hearts 4 is the real reason why I'm having this conversation of like,
Yeah.
you know, TGS last year, I was so sure we were getting it.
Yep.
Um, this year, like Summer Games Fest, I was less confident on, I will admit, than I was then. But I feel like a lot more people were like, the time is right for it, and it wasn't,
Yeah.
apparently. So everybody's heartbreak kind of rubbed off on me a little bit. Um, and so then that's really the discussion of like, it's really boiling down to Kingdom Hearts 4. But I have to start off small in order to build to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so, talking about like this game that's in the middle between these two, um, I think Missing Link has evolved to a console release. I think Square
Ooh.
has. I think Square has um, expanded its development team on it. This is where the tinfoil hat theory goes in, and I could be way wrong on this. I think they've expanded on it. They're still keeping with its mission that this is going to be a Pokemon Go type game, but with
Yeah.
Switch, like especially for the Switch, which is a mobile console in and of itself, it
Hmm.
could still work on Switch. As far as what I'm thinking, I think
Hmm.
it's highly possible that when a Switch 2 gets announced, we might we might finally get our answers on Missing Link. And I think that's crazy, but it is.
You're thinking Switch to
Exactly.
presentation,
Yep.
Missing Link. Okay.
Yep. I I really feel like we're getting something from Kingdom Hearts as far as another game goes in between 4 now. I really do think that, even though nothing's been announced.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I think 4 is going to be a while. And
Sure.
that story constantly evolves. So it wouldn't be unsurprising to see a surprise title be announced.
Yeah.
But I think with the ambition and the story of Missing Link, I think Square probably wants more of a console hit right now than probably in their mobile market. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because this is going to be great in mobile. Like it's still going to be the prime motive to play that game, right? I think there's a
Yeah.
way that you can bring it to PlayStation and Xbox, but I think the Switch is the prime example, and the Steam Deck as well, um, are prime examples of ways that you can bring in Missing Link. I think they learned their lesson with Union Cross about the big debacle of the fact that it's tied to just a mobile game, and that the series, a lot of people don't want to play it because of that, and which is inherently fair, right?
Yeah.
But I think that development team's evolved. I mean, I obviously they still got to work out the kinks of the mobile, like for
Yeah.
Apple and
Hmm.
Samsung, which is why we keep getting these beta tests. But I would
Sure.
not be surprised if
Hmm.
even if it's not for Switch 2, I would think it's still possible for the current generation of Nintendo Switch. That's
Hmm.
just me.
The only thing I would push back on is I wonder if like what's the internet requirement going to be like for Melody of Memory, or not Melody of Memory, Missing Link? Cuz
Right.
like if you can't connect to the internet, then like the GPS stuff doesn't exactly work. So I'm just wondering, like, okay, how does that factor in? Um,
Mhm.
but it's possible. I agree. I think it's possible. I do just wonder. Uh, does I mean, I could see it being a PC release for sure. Um, because that's kind of how a lot of mobile games are nowadays. It's sort of like mobile and PC. And then maybe it comes to console later down the line, kind of thing. Um, so that wouldn't surprise me, but it is a question for sure. Yeah, I just want this game to come out. I'm tired of betas. I'm tired of like
Exactly.
weird, vague statements from everybody. Like, um, I I trust Nomura as a creative, but boy, this series likes to put me on a roller coaster. um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think Missing Link. I'm I don't know. I'm just not sure anymore. I'm just like, why is it taking so long?
Mhm.
Like, it didn't
And
take
that's the
this
thing.
long for UX, right? Like it
Exactly.
didn't. They probably turned Melody and Memory around in like 2 years.
Mhm.
Like unironically, like that's I mean dead serious. That game probably took 2 years to develop, um, and like uh, yes, Missing Link is running on Unreal Engine 4. Also, that's not an excuse. Get your game out the
Yeah.
door, please. um, like yeah, it's frustrating for sure.
Because that's the larger question. What is going on, right?
Yeah,
This is unheard of for this franchise, which is funny considering the gap between 2 and 3. But the point is, previously there was stuff coming out every year. almost
Yeah.
for Kingdom Hearts, and it's just weird to see that we've gone practically, I want to say, 2 years since genuinely getting anything from the franchise. I mean, Dark Road was probably August, so we're probably going on that two year mark.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's been 2 years.
this is just wild, you know? Like it's
Yeah.
just a weird void, and it's just like, does that it gets me questioning what stage are they at in developing everything. Was there
Yeah.
just a create, like, did Nomura was like, okay, now that we've developed for quite a bit, there's some gaps I need to fill, so why don't we do some restructuring? I could see that happening. You know what I mean? Like, as far as restructuring, maybe we get another game out in between that point. I could see it happening. Especially saying that at the end of Remind, it opens the door to a lot of different storylines that they could pull from. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's sad to say I'm just not confident it shows up in TGS this year. I'm likely to say even Missing Link showing up at TGS. I don't think it's happening. I think we skip
Hmm.
TGS. Um,
I yeah, I think this is a different conversation, but I think GTA 6 is probably going to get delayed out of 2025. Um,
mhm.
and I don't think that 100% determines where Kingdom Hearts lands, but I think it definitely plays a part. Um,
Yeah.
so I think, like, I don't know why I've linked Kingdom Hearts 4 and GTA 6 in my head, but I have. And I think,
Well,
like,
there's no denying that when GTA 6 comes out, it is going to be a massive hit.
yeah, like massive
Massive hit.
hit.
Even if it's bad.
Massive hit is like hardly describes it, right?
Mhm.
Like you can't really describe how impressive impressive the sales figures on GTA 6 are going to be unless they like don't market it and it's
Mhm.
bad. Like that would be what it takes to make it flop. But yeah, I just think yeah, I just I just don't know. It's been so long since the Kingdom Hearts series was active, right? Like we did just get the Steam release.
I know a lot of people are happy about that. I don't count that, but that's
Yeah.
consider considering it's been up on Epic. Like, I know they did stuff to it, but improved the engine. Well, not engine, but textures and all that stuff. But yeah, to me, I don't really count it too much. That's
Yeah.
like a separate small development team that's not really a part of. I would imagine it's not really a part of the creative process of Kingdom Hearts 4 and even Missing Link for that matter. So yeah, it's just strange. I don't know. Any kind of ending note for Kingdom Hearts?
No, bring me back
Yeah,
my boy.
yeah. It's time.
I
Like,
I want a genuine reason to like put time into the series again.
yeah,
Because I
me
just
too.
don't have that right now. Um, like,
Oh yeah, you already know once we get the ball rolling on that, it is time to go right from the beginning all the way to the end
yeah,
again, just to experience it all. Like, unfortunately, all games are going to be pushed aside at that point, at least for me. I will be
Yeah.
fully locked in.
Yeah, no, like I'm like already kind of cooking stuff up for like what I do when Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out. Like
Hmm.
how do I isolate myself? Where am I going to
Exactly.
go? Like yeah, it's bad. Yeah. But yeah, it is like I guess what I want to say about like all this stuff is just like it's really frustrating to see the industry just kind of sink, right? Like to just see it kind of like um kind of just wallow in like too much expense, so many layoffs, so much like greed. Like it's a shame because like there's so much talent, right? Like all of these places that we've talked about, Insomniac, Naughty Dog, Square Enix, like there's so much talent, and so much of that talent is being kind of quashed or stretched thin by executives. And it's like, I'm thinking about like Naughty Dog. They released let's look at this. They released Crash Bandicoot through Jack 3
Hmm.
in the amount of time it took between 96 to '04. So that's 8 years. In 7 years, they released The Last of Us through The Last of Us Part 2, right? Like that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in 8 years versus 2 games in 7 years, right? Like that's rough.
Yeah,
Like when like it doesn't have to be this way.
exactly.
And I think that's kind of the really it's really frustrating because then on the other side you have Nintendo, right? We all thought they were done for the year. It was like, oh, what's Nintendo gonna
Yeah.
have? Like, what's gonna happen? And then they come out with Mario and Luigi, um, a new 2D Zelda game where you get to play as Zelda. Uh,
Hmm.
like, I'm not trying to dunk on anybody, but like you can see the kind of stark differences in philosophies, I
Hmm.
guess. And it's just like the reason we're not seeing Naughty Dog, the reason we're not seeing Insomniac. I couldn't tell you what's going on at Square Enix. I have no idea. I feel like they're just like cooking up something crazy,
Yeah.
and I just kind of have to like wait and see.
We just
But
gotta
I
wait.
yeah, it's just they're just like they're just doing their own thing. Like who knows what happens over there, but they'll make something cool, I'm sure. But like with Naughty Dog and Insomniac, it's just like, man, they could be making smaller, focused games that don't blow out the budget, and they can't because the market conditions and the executives don't want them to. Um, and also because like you know Neil Druckmann's not gonna settle for
No.
less. Like he's not gonna make a cell shaded cartoony game. Like
Hmm.
he's gonna go for that big AAA story driven thing. Um, and that's fine, but it does result in fewer games. And that's
Hmm.
fewer games from really talented people, right? We still have like an entire landscape of indie games, so like don't get it twisted, like you could always find something to play. Um,
Hmm.
but it is just I just think it's a shame cuz these studios are so talented. They're so talented.
Hmm.
And like we only get to see that every once in a while, right? Every few years at best, we get to
Yeah.
see a Sucker Punch game. We get to see a Naughty Dog game. Um, yeah, like, yeah. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox.
No. Yeah, I mean, you bring up great points, and it's it's just really wild to think about as far as these wait times. It's just I'm sitting here thinking, I'm just like, am I being selfish for wanting more? But at the same time, you look at all you look at gaming history, and in the production troubles that have risen since these past few years. It's all a wild conversation, and it's an interesting point to look at, and it's one of the things that as to why I wanted to talk about that stuff today. Like, the I think we're at that halfway point in the year, and it's something to note about. I think it's something, you know as fans of these games, it's really important to point out how weird of a time we're in.
Yeah.
But as it being the halfway point in the year, there was another topic of conversation that
Yep.
Ezra and I wanted to talk about, and it's got to be we're halfway through the year now, so I'm wondering, Ezra, you and I are about to go down the rabbit hole of speculation as to who will be the game of the year in
Yep.
2024.
Yep.
So, Ezra, to my understanding, you have a list of the top 20 games critically in 2024 so far.
Yeah.
And this is just speculation of stuff that we have had released. I
Yep.
don't think we're going really into stuff that is about to come out.
Yeah.
Um, but at least this conversation is, are they a contender? Not necessarily, I would say, as a winner, but will they get nominated? And if you do
Yeah.
think there is a winner, I think that one is an interesting, like, I think it is interesting to point out. But that's the main focus is this a contender to get nominated?
Yeah.
So, Ezra, I am going to turn this a little bit to you. I know you have
Yeah.
this list. Would you mind sending me the list so I can
Oh
take
yeah,
a
yeah,
peek at it?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I so what I did. This might be kind of awkward because it's
mhm,
like something I set up with the page. What I did
yeah.
was I'm on we're using Metacritic.
Mhm,
Metacritic isn't the best, but it'll work.
yeah.
It'll work for our purposes here. What I did was I filtered by release year. I just made it 2024, and then I filtered it by Metascore. So I'm looking at basically just the first page. Yeah, if you would like to, you can read off. I was thinking we could go from 21 because that was kind of I would hate to leave that game out. Um, but you can kind of decide as you're um, as you're thinking about it. Um,
Yeah, 1 second. I'm trying to get it all filtered in real quick. Um, let me. Oh, it's already. Is it already? Oh, it's already there.
oh, is it already set
I'm
up?
like, yeah. I'm like,
Oh,
how is it?
that's funny.
Okay, I think it's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just let you
Okay. Yeah,
start,
I can do
and
it.
if my list is wrong, then I'll figure out
Okay. Yeah.
what I did wrong.
Um, yeah. So I think I want to start with number 21 just to because I think it would be weird to leave this game out of the conversation. Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yeah, I got
With
yeah, that's the list. Yep.
yeah, with with an 86 Metascore. Neither of us have played it, but I think I can safely say this will get some Game of the Year nominations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it made a big enough splash. It did well enough critically.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Capcom game. That helps. Um, yeah, I think it'll get like action game, maybe RPG. Like it'll be nominated for those at least. Um, Sons of the Forest is number 20. This is a sort of a horror game. It's gotten its fair share of hundreds, tens, but also some sevens and sixes. Um, it is important to remember that like the Metascore is just an average based on the like all of the reviews that come in.
Yeah.
So like some of these could have had like 3 really good reviews, and that's why they're so high up. So like is Sons of the Forest going to get nominated? We can't be 100% sure, but it's a horror game. I'm sure the in my mind kind of the Venn diagram of like horror games and uh and like Game of the Year nominations is kind of like a circle. Like they get nominated for whatever they qualify for. So
Yeah.
like maybe that's not true, but that's just kind of how it feels. So it's like I wouldn't be too surprised. Um, this one's interesting. Number 19 with Prince of Persia, The Lost
Yeah.
Crown. So I remember when oh shoot. I remember when this got revealed
Mm-hmm.
and I literally everybody was like, what is this? This isn't what we want.
Right.
And now it's like one of the most critically acclaimed games Ubisoft has put out in like years, right? Like it feels that way at least. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's got a shot. What do you think, Caleb?
Well, it's hard to say. Like, I think you're right. It is a surprise that that it did well as far as critically. I think from a commercial success, I don't think it was much of a standout to be at least. I'm as far as an actual game of the year contender.
Yeah.
It's tough to say. I would say probably not. I'm gonna lean towards probably not, and it's not because of its critical success. I think it's because, like I mentioned, the commercial success of it and the time it came out.
Yeah.
It came out in January. By the time the Game Awards come around, it'll be almost a full year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think this game will be forgotten as
Yeah.
far as the Game Awards. I don't think it's got any kind of shot. It might get a few small nominations, maybe for action and adventure.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't even know what they would even categorize this game anymore. So,
Yeah.
but it would just that's kind of my thought. Um, on Prince of Persia, I
Yeah.
yeah, that's my feelings.
Um the next one on the list is Alan Wake 2. Specifically, they made the Night Springs expansion. Um, I hmm. Let's. Do you have anything you want to say about it?
I think this goes into the greater discussion, especially as we get into other titles on this list
Yeah.
of what
Yeah.
defines a game of the year contender,
Yeah.
considering an expansion versus a game. Now, I don't know
Yeah.
much about Night Springs, to be honest with you. This was completely shadow dropped at Summer
Yep.
Games Fest, and I never followed up on it as far as how much of an expansion it is.
Yeah.
So I will mention the point of it goes into the definition of what's going to be nominated this year, and if it is like if they do consider these type of expansions as a game of the year contender,
Yeah.
it might have a shot to slip in depending on how the year goes. That would be my feelings towards it, considering how not commercially, how critically Alan Wake 2 was successful, and Control was successful, and the
Yeah.
first Alan Wake was. So it's just like it is as a studio. I would imagine it's highly possible it gets slipped in there.
Yeah. I'm with you. I also agree with that. I think I would kind of save this for um, the kind of a larger conversation as well. So we'll just move on. But we haven't forgotten about Alan Wake. Let's just point that
Mm-hmm.
out. Next one. Here's one that I've actually played. It's Unicorn Overlord. Now I haven't played it all the way through, or I would have talked about it on the show in an earlier episode. But what I can tell you is this is a really solid take on the strategy RPG genre. Um, it's good to have like some unique stuff in there. Um, it's got a cool kind of real time or sort of real time thing going on. I really like the exploration as well. I think it's got a really cool exploration system. Um, and yeah, I think it's done really solidly for itself in terms of uh, reviews. It's got a really good 86 on Metacritic. Um, so yeah, I think I would guess this is going to end up in that like best strategy, best um, maybe best RPG, something like that. I don't see it really being in those like prestige ones necessarily. Um, like, yeah, no, I doubt it.
Mhm.
Yeah, do you have any thoughts on Unicorn Overlord?
I just I don't think commercially it holds weight.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
the big thing is
Actually,
to consider with these titles is the commercial success too. And it's sad to say, but it's very true as far as the Game Awards go. Is yeah, they do favor certain smaller titles, but at the same time, they're looking at the successful ones to really factor in what
I'm
gets not.
gonna.
But what's up?
Sorry,
You,
I'm gonna push back a little bit.
yeah.
Unicorn Overlord has sold 500,000 units. Uh,
No.
I think like in its first month. Um, Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not the first month. Maybe it's a longer period. But
Yeah.
like Unicorn Overlord released. When did Unicorn Overlord release? That's maybe important to find out. Let's see. March 8th. So yeah, as
Yeah.
of April, it had sold, so in its first month it sold 500,000 units. So like it's not a slouch for a JRPG.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. So I wanted to push back just a little bit. Like I agree it's definitely like on the smaller side, but for a JRPG it did do numbers. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. I still kind of think it doesn't have a shot, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's a good rebuttal. I'll just say that.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Yeah, definitely not at like the top ones, right? Like best
mhm.
score, best art direction, uh, best direction, game of the year, stuff like that. But I think it's got like it'll wind up in a few categories. Is my I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. All right, moving on to Riven with an 87. Uh, I don't know what this game is. I'm going to be honest
I
with
don't
you.
know. I don't know the next two, to be honest with you. I don't know this one or 15.
Let me look. Game. It is a puzzle adventure. Oh, it's the. Wait. Oh, okay. This is a remake of the game that came out in like 98. So I'm going to guess this is not going to end up on any game of the year lists. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll skip it and we'll take responsibility if we're wrong. Uh,
Right.
uh,
Exactly. It wouldn't be the first time this year where I've been wrong. Which, honestly, why is that not on this list?
hmm. What are you looking for?
You you go ahead and continue. This will just be in our final thoughts, I guess.
Okay.
What? Okay, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mini Shoot Adventures is the next. Uh, Mini Shoot Adventures. Okay, you're gonna look at the Steam page for this one because I had not heard of this. Um, okay, it's like a twin stick shooter kind of thing. Okay, that's fun. Um, it's reviewed really well. With an 87. So go check it out. I don't think either of us have anything to say about it, unless you have played it, Caleb.
Nope, never heard of it.
Okay. All right. Well, we got kind of a twofer for me.
Yeah.
We got Persona 3 Reload next. This is number 14. Um, and this was the remake of Persona 3. I said a whole lot about it already, so I don't want to like rehash that. Um, I think if I had to guess, Persona 3 Reload will be in the best soundtrack category, and somebody on the voice acting, somebody in the voice cast will get nominated. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's possible.
Oh, go ahead. Finish what you were going to say.
I will say I don't think it gets anything else. Maybe art direction, but like that's a stretch. So, anyways, go ahead, Caleb.
So this is going to be the second sort of side topic that the Game Awards is going to be clouded in this judgment on
Yeah,
when they come out with their nominations. I know we talked about expansions. Now we're going to talk about remakes.
that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Being huge contenders as into it, and what gets defined as a remake versus a remaster.
Yeah.
All that kind of situation goes in tails. But if they are more, I want to say, open-minded to the possibility of remakes being in that nomination list, I would say it's got a chance.
Yeah. I think.
I'm not going to go and say that it is a contender, but I think it has a chance to slip in that final slot.
Yeah,
Depending on,
I definitely feel that. I think just because it's such a like top down like overhaul of the game, like it's not even the same voice cast from the original game. They got completely new actors. They rewrote, I'm sure, a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I would be surprised if it wasn't in contention for that. But you make a good point. Speaking of remakes or re-releases or whatever, at number 13 is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. And I have put an absurd amount of time into this game. I have put, let me look on Steam. Steam says I have put 116 hours into Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance.
and that's Steam, because didn't
That's
you have
Steam.
you have it on physical with the Switch, don't you?
Well, I have the
Not
original
Vengeance,
Shin
but
Megami Tensei 5 on Switch. Vengeance is like the re-release with new content. So it's like collectively, yeah, I probably have like 250 hours in Shin Megami Tensei 5, but like do you count
still,
it is like it does get into that, like, do you count it because it's technically a re-release, but like
right.
it's technically a different game. So yeah, I mean, I think for one thing, if I were to tell anybody to play a Shin Megami Tensei game, I would tell them to play this one, because I think it's at once the most accessible and like it's just the most modern, I guess is the best way to put it. Like it's just the most like modern, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Vengeance, I would say, like I really love the original Shin Megami Tensei 5. I think it has a lot of problems, and I think um I think it feels a little rushed, but other than those two things, I love the original Shin Megami Tensei 5. So I would have been like perfectly happy with just a re-release of Shin Megami Tensei 5 at, on PC at 60 FPS, and maybe some slight changes, right? Maybe some quality of life stuff. Instead, what we got was that and a whole lot of new demons and a new story route that has like a ton of changes. And like there were some I don't think like Vengeance fixed Shin Megami Tensei 5, but it certainly made it a whole lot better. Um like the how do I put this? I have like a million different thoughts about this game. um uh do you think you're ever going to play it?
I would say it's unlikely in the near future.
Okay. Do you mind if I spoil?
Yeah, you're
Something
fine, because I probably,
Yeah.
by the time I get to it, I probably won't remember what you all saying.
It's
To be
well, and
honest with you.
it's like it's if you don't know exactly the context, it's
Yeah.
like it's fine. It's probably fine. Spoilers for Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. So, the in Vengeance, there's the canon of creation, which is the original story route from the original release of Shin Megami Tensei 5, with not no changes, but all of like the story content is exactly the same. The canon of Vengeance is the new route, and it starts off in the same way, but pretty quickly veers in a different direction. Like there's like a whole new area that you go to. There's one of the dungeons is replaced with a different one. Like there's a bunch of changes. But there was this moment. So I got something spoiled for me, where in the canon of creation, towards like in the last area, you're supposed to get these 3 keys, and they're all held by. Well, one of them's held by Zeus, one of them's held by Odin, and one of them's held by Vasuki, who's like a Hindu god. And so that's fine. That's like a fun little like, okay, everybody's kind of, all the like pantheons are kind of fighting with each other thing. Like it's cool. The fights are cool. They're reasonably difficult on your first time. So I got spoiled that in the canon of Vengeance, they don't exactly tell you why, but Odin and Zeus team up, and like they fight you together. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. I wonder what they're gonna do with Vasuki, because like Vasuki's kind of like unique among them because he's not a lightning god. He doesn't have the same battle theme, um, and then, uh, and then I get to Vasuki on my first playthrough of the Canon of Vengeance, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what they're gonna do. I guess I'm just gonna fight Vasuki, and Vasuki's dying. Like you get there and Vasuki's like, I'm dying, and he dies, and then Shin Megami Tensei staple Beelzebub shows up, grills the player character, and starts fighting you for absolutely no reason. This guy wants you to like beat the game. Like this guy is on your side and he's like, I'm going to fight you. And he has his own unique battle theme. And when I tell you, like, I've never been more hyped playing an Atlas game than when this change happened. Uh, like it's hard to describe because it's just like why are you hyped about that? Like what's there to be excited about? But like it was seriously like, oh, this is so cool. So like there's all sorts of like little stuff like that in Vengeance that makes it feel like such a complete game in a way that the original 5 didn't. Um yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to know about Vengeance before we
Well,
move on?
well, basically, I'll just say is, do I think this is an actual contender? Does it is it a contender? I don't think so, but I
Yeah.
will say if we get into the conversation of expansions
Yeah.
being a possibility, I think this is going to edge a certain other expansion that came out, and I think it edges out the Alan Wake 2. So I'm going to say this is probably a strong. I'm going to call it a strong chance if
Yeah.
the if the committee considers this a contender. Like
Yeah.
if they even put this in the running.
Yeah. Yeah, I
That's what
want
I would.
them to
This type of category.
yeah, I want them to really consider having some kind of like best expansion, best edition kind of thing cuz like Vengeance, it's not like a whole new game, but it's different enough, right? Like it's got enough new stuff to like you could justify putting a price tag on just the new content alone, right? Like it doesn't have to it didn't have to be its own release. They just did that probably just mostly because they also wanted to put it out on everything else. Um, so yeah. Well, moving back on to stuff neither of us know about, unless you know about Mullet Magic.
Nope. Nope.
Um, it is it's a single player fast paced FPS. Okay. It's reviewed pretty well. Do I think it's going to like win a bunch of awards? Looks a little campy for that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, that's the fact that I haven't heard about it says a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. I feel like any game that we really haven't heard of
Yeah.
is. I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Very, very, very unlikely. But I could be wrong. But yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, my browser is giving me trouble. Okay, next on the list, and I think this goes into the sort of expansion, remaster, re-release, remake kind of thing. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Much anticipated. I mean, this is probably, I can't think of a more beloved Mario RPG than Thousand Year Door, right? Like maybe Super Mario RPG, but like yeah, even then, Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door, so beloved. What I wonder is this game different enough from the original to qualify? And I don't have an answer.
And I don't really have an answer as well. I have learned in the past to not bet against the Italian plumber, but
Sure, yeah.
I will say, especially for the Game Awards,
Yeah.
I want to say, because it's not too much of a stark difference, that I don't think it gets nominated. I would say, out of the many other remakes on this list, I don't think it I don't think it gets a shot. Now, that's not saying it can be nominated for other things,
Yeah,
but
I
as far as
think
actual game of the year, I don't think it's getting nominated.
Your Door. I want to make soundtrack. Did they rescore the OST?
Oh, I have no idea. I would say no, if I had a guess.
Yeah, I think they did rescore some of the soundtrack at least. So, but they did also have like the GameCube version of the soundtrack was also in there. So, that's best case scenario. I think maybe it could potentially like land in like best score or something like that just because they rescored it, but I don't think that's not a surefire thing. Um, yeah. Okay. Next up is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. This is I think I've definitely heard of this game, but it kind of just came and went. Um, this is like a puzzle game. Looks like kind of like horror stuff. It could make those like best indie game lists if it wanted to, but I wouldn't know. Yeah, what do you think, Caleb? Anything
Yeah,
interesting?
I don't think I've really heard of this game. If it did, it came and went.
Yeah,
As far as in a showcase, nothing was too stand out for me, so I would say unlikely again.
yeah. No, that's fair. Okay, we are in. Well, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes was top 10, so now we're in the top 10. The rest of them are all kind of like. That's not true. We'll get to it. The next one is Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. This is the so it's the by my understanding, it is the sequel to Yakuza Like a Dragon, which came out like is like 2021, something like that.
Yeah, I want to say it was like years ago.
So it's the sequel to that, and then also the sequel to the other Yakuza games, because the protagonist of those games is also in Infinite Wealth, and is like a finale to that character or something like that. I don't know anything about Yakuza. Uh, Someday I will I will carve out the space for this series, because uh, it is much beloved. I really like the tone. I I definitely need to play it. I just haven't gotten to it. But yeah, I think this could definitely make a few lists, but I'm interested to hear what you think, Caleb.
I think if we're counting out expansions and remakes
Yeah.
and a slow year, I think this is a sleeper of getting in. I think this is like one of those, like, I don't think so, but it could. It could
Yeah.
be getting in as far as nominations go. So yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
because it's a popular niche game.
Yeah.
I think
That's a
that's
really
my
good way
best
of
way to
putting
put
it.
it.
Yeah.
Um, so that's why it's so tricky. You know what I mean? This one's a tricky one.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say sleeper.
Okay.
Um,
I like it. So, uh, number 8, I'm just going to skip this unless you don't want me to. Number
no,
8
you're
is
okay.
Horizon Forbidden West. It's just the PC release of that. Um, it's a complete edition, I guess. Um, yeah. Not in contention.
No.
um, Next up, kind of surprising to see how high it's up on the
Yeah.
list. Destiny 2: The Final Shape. Um, I have not played it. Caleb, I don't think you've played it.
No. I haven't
But
actually heard much about it as far as like
yeah,
posts.
I've only heard rumblings, and I'm kind of looking at it, and I'm like, okay. But I had heard some rumblings, and it's like, oh, it did really well for itself.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I think people are really happy with the expansion, and um, so I think it's definitely in that conversation for like best ongoing, at least, right? Maybe
Mhm.
best expansion or update, whatever they call it. Um, yeah,
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. It's to me it's hard to say. I don't think this is their biggest expansion success. So I'm gonna
yeah,
go on the lines of, yeah, I don't think it's happening. I wouldn't say it's unlikely, but I just don't think it's gonna happen.
yeah.
Um,
It is
yeah.
extremely rare for like a multiplayer focused game like Destiny to like reach those heights, right? Like,
Hmm.
yeah,
Especially for an almost 10-year-old game, right? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know when it came out, but I want to say it was 2014, 20. It was probably
Destiny
2015.
2,
Yeah.
2016.
Okay. Yeah, that was about, yeah. That makes sense. No, I was going to say 2016 as well, as far as
Yeah,
that range. Um the uh yeah, that that's all I kind of got to say about Destiny.
yeah. Yeah, I haven't played it. I think eventually I'll play it, but you'll have to get back to me on that one. Uh, Tekken 8 is number 6. Uh, I think it's our first one that. Yep, it is the first game on the list that has broken the 90 Metascore. Again, this is like the average of all of the reviews, so like that's really good. I know a lot of people really love Tekken 8, and I have not played enough of it to give it a judgment. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of all I can say. It's definitely, I would say it's definitely a shoe in for best fighting game if I had to guess. Because I can't think of other fighting games that are coming out this year.
No. But I will say, I think this is the first contender. To me.
The first, oh, you
I
think this
think
is the first overall contender?
overall contender. I think this game was too successful
Yeah.
to be a point of, as far as a fighting game breaching that, getting into the game of the year list. I haven't played it. I just, judging off of commercial and critical success, I would say
Yeah.
probably this is in there, especially for the year that we've had. Um, I I think this is a strong chance of getting in. So this is like my
Oh,
first real. I think this is a contender right here, um, out of this list. But that's
interesting.
pretty much all I got to say about it. Other
Yeah.
than I feel confident on that one.
Okay. All right. We are skipping number 5 because The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered does not deserve
Yeah.
the game of the year. I feel like we just spent a really long time talking about that. Next up on the list is Balatro. I've actually played this. Have you? Do you know about this game at
Other
all,
than seeing
Caleb?
this description right here, no. But I will
Yeah.
say I'm intrigued by the description.
Yeah,
A
it's
roguelike poker game kind of sounds
yeah,
fun.
it's I mean, that's basically it says what it is on the tin. I've played a little bit of it and I have to say it didn't really click with me,
Mm,
but I wonder if that's like the cuz when I played Vampire Survivors for the first time, I was like, so wait, what do people see in this? Because I'm not seeing it. Like I was like, why do people think this is so great? Um,
mm.
and then I put it away for a little while, and then I came back to it, and then 90 hours passed. So like, yeah, I people have been kind of saying like this is kind of the Vampire Survivors of 2024, and I think I could definitely see why it just hasn't like clicked with me yet. Um, but I think this definitely has a shot at like best indie game, best could be best first release of an indie game because I don't know if this is a PlayStack, Local Thunk. Let me look and see if they're. Yeah, no, it's like a solo dev. So yeah, definitely not a shoe in for like best debut indie or something like that, but definitely in that conversation, right? Um, and possibly for best overall. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't know. Balatro is kind of weird because it's that like really gameplay focused game that's
Mhm.
like those never win game of the year, right? Like there has to
Right.
be a little bit. There has to be a little bit of like ooh artsiness and presentation and all that stuff, and Balatro just doesn't quite have that.
Right.
But you never know.
I think
Uh, Go
I
ahead.
think it's interesting to point out, as far as roguelike, like it is the kind of the year for roguelike.
Yeah.
games. I mean, I can't even tell you how many rogue, like, you know how we had one year like farming sims being a thing. I feel like
Yep.
this year has been a thing for roguelike games.
Yeah.
I can't even like list them off on the top of my head, but I can't even tell you how many times it popped up in showcases this year.
Yeah.
And they were all different. It wasn't like we were getting the same one all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
so I think it's a booming genre. I will say, well, I don't even know if you would call it a genre, but a style. Um,
Yeah, it's more like a
that's tough.
structure than
Yeah,
anything.
structure. Yeah. Um, and so while it is that year, I think it's just too small to be a contender. I don't know if it even has a chance. I wouldn't say unlikely, but I would say just I think it's just caught in the middle. I would even
Yeah.
say hair under sleeper. I think it's just caught in that middle and like you said, just be forgotten in that contention. It's kind of similar to how I was talking about Prince of Persia in that regard.
Yeah.
Just going to be lost in the shadows. Um, yeah, I would say no.
Okay. Okay, moving on to we're in the top 3 now with Animal Well. Uh Caleb, are you familiar with the story
No,
behind this? Okay,
no.
so Animal Well, do you know Video Game Donkey, the YouTuber?
Mm-mm.
No? Oh man.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Uh so how do I describe this? So Animal Well is uh the it's the debut release of Big Mode, which is Video Game Donkey's publishing firm, basically. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, it's a Metroidvania. It's done really well for itself. It's definitely in that like best indie conversation.
Okay.
Um, I haven't played it, so I can't tell you more about it. I could just tell you that like it is one of those like big success stories of the year, I
Okay.
guess. So yeah, but
So,
I think it could make it into that like game of the year
mhm.
conversation, but you never know.
I think from what you've told me just a second ago, just kind of basing it, I'm gonna say sleeper.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think probably put it behind just because I haven't really heard of it, but I do think sleeper is a really comfortable position as far as that being a
Yeah.
contender. Like you said, it's a big indie standout hit,
Yeah.
and I think the Game Awards likes to showcase at least one within the Game Award, like the Game of the Year list. So
Yeah.
I mean that like leads to a larger conversation of what is an indie game, but at the same time,
Yeah.
uh, I would say yeah, it's a sleeper. I wouldn't sleep like I wouldn't be too shocked to see it slip in there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Number 2. We've been waiting for this one. Final
Hmm.
Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now we did a whole podcast on this game,
Absolutely, yeah.
so you can
Yep.
go listen to that.
Hmm.
We both loved it. Um, I think if we if we jumped to the Game Awards and no other game is released, I think this game would just kind of win.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of my I know a lot of people wouldn't exactly be happy about that, but I think that's just kind of the reality. As much as I love this game, like I think, um, I just think like what a quality product,
Mm,
and what an effort, man. Like, come on, like
yeah.
it's just so. I'm just remembering so much about this game, and just like how much of a
Yeah.
blast it was. Yeah, like I would say if this if time stopped and we
Mhm.
jumped to the game awards and no other games released, again, I think 7R kind of just wins. Um, what do you think?
Um, well, it's no secret the bias I have for this game.
Yeah.
I think, it is hard for me to even consider another game being triumphant over that for me, as far as my own personal opinions. I think this is going to be 100% my game of the year. With that said,
Okay.
um, I do think it's got a very, very strong chance of being a contender and nominated.
Yeah.
Does it win? That's when we get into the discussion of how much do they consider remakes as a
Yeah.
plausible plausible consideration, right? Because
Yeah.
because that opens a little bit of the floodgates for years to come, right? But
Yeah.
um, I mean,
So
FF7R didn't didn't remake get nominated for Game of the Year?
let me
I'm
look.
I want to say it did, or it got snubbed, and I was really upset. I
Seven
actually, now that I think about it,
remake
I think it did get snubbed.
accolades. It got nominated it got nominated for Game of the Year.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yeah, it got nominated for Game of the Year. And it got nominated for like a whole lot. It got nominated for Game of the Year, Game Direction, Narrative, Art Direction,
Hmm.
Score, Music, and Role
It did.
Playing
Yeah.
Game. And it won
Yep.
Score, Music, and Role Playing Game, which
Yep.
is good. They actually like made a good choice on that one.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I
I will
think.
say.
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I want you to go ahead.
Okay. Well, I will say I think that Rebirth is I mean, judging from its past, I mean, we gotta look at Rebirth versus remake, and
Yeah,
it's like looking at Empire Strikes Back to the original Star Wars,
it's
right?
true. It's true.
It,
No, absolutely.
and I don't mean that even in a narrative sense. I mean that as an overall production sense too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, no,
it's
like you can't tell me that Empire Strikes Back isn't just a better movie,
exactly
right? Like it
a
doesn't
100%.
matter. It doesn't matter, what the story is, or what the just watching Empire versus
Mhm.
watching A New Hope, night and day. And I
Yeah.
think it's like I think it's that I think you're right. I think it's the same thing with remake to rebirth.
Um, so I think it is a strong chance to be in the top three of this year getting Game of the Year. I do think that, but yeah, I will. Like for me, it's number one. But as far as what they're considering, I don't. I it's hard to read them sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to talk about the last game so we can get into the to the discussion of like what we think is going to win, and you know, expansions, remakes, re-releases, all
Yeah.
that stuff. Number one on Metacritic's list, again, Metacritic not perfect. Both of us would probably have very different lists than Metacritic does, but we're just using this as kind of like a way to kind of read the room. Number one on Metacritic's list is Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree, the expansion to Elden Ring, the one and only expansion to Elden Ring. So I have played it. I have thoughts. I will share some of my thoughts with you now. I think like what I'll say about it is like I think you know how when it's not exactly 1-to-1, but you know how when Tears of the Kingdom came out, everybody who had played Breath of the Wild was like, "Hey, if you didn't like Breath of the Wild, you won't like Tears of the Kingdom." Like you remember how that was kind of like floated around?
Yep.
I feel very similarly about Shadow of the Erdtree. Like it doesn't really fix any of the problems that Elden Ring has, where it's like you barely feel like a participant in the story. The balance is all whacked out of its mind. Like one minute you're stomping everything, and the next second you're getting stomped. Like some of the boss design, like when I tell you the final boss is a worse idea than putting you against Kingdom Hearts 3 Shion with KH1 Sora. I'm being serious. Like that's what it feels like. Like quite literally in some ways actually. Like literal like light beams and like fast movements and stuff. Like it's pretty crazy. Visually, it's a lot of fun, but from a gameplay standpoint, it's like, man, I wish I had more options.
Right.
I think so. Yeah, I that's kind of the crux, and then also it feels kind of haphazardly stuck onto the base game of Elden Ring. Like, there's some pretty important lore stuff that happens in Shadow of the Erdtree, and nobody in the base game has anything to say about it. Like, no, not a single person in the base game makes any comment whatsoever about even the existence of the expansion, right? Like, and if this were like an epilogue, right? If this were a if this took place, you know, in a different time, no, but like you can access the expansion before you beat like the halfway boss of the main game.
Really?
Yeah, like you can. Well, Elden Ring's weird because there are like 165. There are 165 bosses in the base game of Elden Ring. There are like, I think, 12 sort of major bosses, of which like 7 are required. So like,
Gotcha.
you know, and like 2 of the and you can beat 2 of those and get access to the expansion. Like it's I'm not gonna say it's more complicated than that, but it's like there are more steps, but like that's kind of it. So like you can, my point is you can access this content in the middle of your playthrough of the main game, get stuff from the DLC and use it in the main game, right? Like
and then break the main game essentially.
possibly, yeah, like especially because like the expansion is kind of scaled for like past end game, like you
Mm-hmm.
it has its own progression system that like kind of evens you out with the DLC as time goes on. Um, but like, yeah, like if you can beat the DLC of Elden Ring, you can beat Elden Ring. Like it's not, um, yeah, like that's not a question in my mind. So it's like, um, yeah, so that's like the fact that like nobody in the game has anything to say about it is genuinely kind of frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like these are some important characters, and um, like I know. I don't know. Like it's a lot. It's a lot to talk about, but it's just like because like they're but then on the flip side, like when I tell you like some of this stuff is like the coolest stuff I've ever seen,
Mm-hmm.
I'm dead serious. Like there are like I'm trying to think like there of all of the like major bosses in the DLC, there is one that I outright don't like. And it's because he's just kind of lame. Like that's kind of that's kind of just it. Like you would know, like if I gave you like a list of all of them and you pointed at one of them, you like I'm sure you would be able to figure out which one I hate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like, and it's literally just because I dislike I just think they're kind of lame. Like the rest of them at least have something going for them. So like it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating because like with all of my soul, I want to just say like, oh yeah, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree is like the best expansion since sliced bread, but like with something like let's just say it with Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, right? Not only does it take place technically after the main game of Kingdom Hearts 3 with a few it's basically an epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
It it adds all of that content in a way that makes sense, and it makes sense as like the final thing you will do in that game, right? Like the last thing you
Right.
will do
Exactly.
in Kingdom Hearts 3 is fight the Data organization and fight Yozora, right? um Whereas with Shadow of the Erd Tree, it's like you can fight every DLC boss again before you fight the halfway boss of the main game. And it's
That's
like
weird.
and like if you do that, the halfway boss is a joke, right? Unless you purposefully um like hinder yourself in some way. And if if you play a level one, if you do all these things, like
Right.
that's you can do that. That's no shade to people who do that, but just like there's something kind of out of whack about that. um and it's just like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it feels sloppier than I would expect from software. I guess is what I'll say. Is like it's because again, like some of these bosses are so cool. They're so cool. And yet like the way it interacts with the main game is just so weird and clunky, and yeah. So those are my thoughts on Shadow of the Erdtree. Really good. I would still like recommend you play it if you liked Elden Ring. Like I just think that like I guess what I'll say is like blind praise doesn't get anybody anywhere, and I think like this was
Absolutely.
not as clean as a lot of people make it out to be.
I could definitely understand that. Yeah, I mean, I haven't played it yet. I haven't played the game yet either. It's good to know, especially now if I do go back to it. Not back to it, go to do it, that
Yeah.
I could possibly run into a situation where I'm in the DLC.
Yeah,
But
you would have to kind of know what you're doing to do that.
exactly. Okay.
Like like I've played through Elden Ring Lord knows how many times at this point. Like genuinely, like I've done so many runs that I'm just like I I wouldn't say I know everything about the game, but I know enough to like get around. Um, like in order to get to the DLC super early, you would have to like know exactly what to do and how to do it.
Gotcha.
Like it wouldn't be just like a, oh, I stumbled across the DLC. Like
Okay.
one of the, because like technically one of the bosses you have to beat to get to the DLC is like a secret, quote unquote, a secret boss. Like not really a
Gotcha.
secret, but he's like, but like you're just able to access him super early. So like you would have to really like go out of your way to finish all of the steps to get to that boss early and beat him super early. Like I would be genuinely surprised if somebody like stumbled on the DLC on their first playthrough. Um, Now, if that happens, I'd be interested to hear if somebody did that by accident. um, but like, but I doubt like I don't think anybody's in danger of doing that exactly. I just think it's like it's one of those things where it's like on a first playthrough, everything seems so like meticulous and well thought out, and like, oh, they did this so well, and look at how this was placed. And then on a second playthrough, you're like, oh yeah, no, this is barely held together. I could do X, Y, and Z and completely just trivialize the game, and that's that. And that can be fun if you have fun. I have fun with that, but like for some people, that's not like
Yeah.
that really messes with their experience. So, anyways, that's Elden Ring. Sorry if I took so long on that, but
No, you're okay.
So Shadow of the Erdtree finds itself, I think, in a similar place to Cyberpunk 2077: The Phantom Liberty. Would you agree with that?
I would say so. Yeah.
In the sense that like I mean, this expansion is huge, right? Massive expansion. It's a $40 release. It's I mean, it's like the highest rated expansion of all time or something like that. Like, so Yeah, I guess the question is like, does it qualify for Game of the Year? And I would say yes
Hmm.
at the Game Awards, if only because it's from software, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of gray area whether or not it qualifies, and I think if it does, it's out of the contention. Sorry, out of the question. It is a contender if it
Yeah.
qualifies. Um, and it is a contender to even win. I think, um, just because of how successful it is and how critically it's been. Now, granted, you run into the sticky situation of Elden Ring already won Game of the Year, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, do I think it would actually win it? Probably not. But
That's yeah.
it has a chance to not only contend, but be in that top sense of that top three of I don't know who's going to actually win this type of situation. That's
Yeah.
if it qualifies. Um,
Yeah.
and that's just me as an outsider looking in.
Sure,
Um,
yeah, no, absolutely. I
so
wanna just add a little bit of context.
mhm,
Phantom Liberty won Best Ongoing Game last year and was also nominated for several other awards. So that's kind of
mhm.
where we're coming from on this. Um,
I think out of any expansion, this is the one that gets in.
yeah,
If we're
I agree
if
with
we're
that.
if if we're going to qualify, that's what gets in. And you would and that would be the standard in years to come of like it has to be like of Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree quality in
Yeah,
order to get into the
yeah,
into the nominees. That's just the the standard it would be.
yeah.
Um,
No, absolutely.
but I kind of want to transition to kind of just a final thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Um, like out of this list, what do you think? Is there anything that you think got snubbed, or is there anything that
Hmm.
you think is a strong contender? I've already kind of talked about which ones I think is the strongest. There
Yeah.
is one that I think got snubbed, but I am going to leave the floor to you
Sure. Yeah.
as to what do you think on that?
Hmm. Yeah, I think. Uh, I think the top 20 makes a lot of sense for the most part.
Mm,
I think the I yeah, I mean, I'm always going to be a little frustrated that uh the Game Awards kind of tends to ignore JRPGs.
mm,
Um like a few will get on there like Xenoblade 3 got nominated for Game of the Year that one year.
mhm.
But like
Yeah.
that felt more like a consolation prize than anything else.
Hmm.
I like Xenoblade 3 is one of my favorite games of all time, so like don't misconstrue that. I just like I yeah, I think it's a weird year for sure. And I think yeah, like you said 7R is probably your game of the year. I can say like for me it's going to be pretty hard to beat 7 remake. Like Elden Ring is great and all, but like am I attached to it the way I'm attached to like Cloud and the Gang? Absolutely not. Um, so like, yeah, I just think seven Rebirth's gonna be really hard to beat. I think it's certainly possible. Um,
Hmm.
like, you know, top of my head, Metaphors coming out in October. Like that's, that there's the possibility of that. There's you know, they seem to be cooking with Sonic X Shadow Generations, so like you never
Hmm.
know. Like there's all sorts of like stuff that could come out that could dethrone it, but like looking at it right now, it's just like yeah, 7R.
Yeah.
um, and so yeah, those are kind of my final thoughts. Caleb, take it home. Um,
Okay, so I think that list does a really good job of kind of outlining things of what has done well this year that are contenders. I will say there is one thing on this list that I am so shocked that is even at the spot that it's at and not in the top 20. I gotta say Helldivers 2
oh,
being
okay,
at
yeah,
41. I think this is 100% a contender.
yeah,
100%. Without a
yeah,
doubt. It is too commercial of a success to be ignored. It has it has cemented itself as an easy game of the year nominee. Now whether
yeah,
it wins, it remains to be seen, especially going up against Rebirth this year. As far as those are the top two as of right now. The thing
yeah.
is, the reason why Helldivers 2 could win is if it stays consistent throughout the year with its
Sure.
update. Right, that is the
Yeah.
thing that it needs to do, and right now, I think as of right now, it's starting to slip as far
Yeah,
as
for sure.
from what I can tell. So they really need to, and this is the tricky part with MMOs. They really need to dive in to a new expansion, not necessarily to a new expansion, to new content that can keep that train going into the Game Awards because it is such an early release in the year. That is that's the issue. So I do not want to mistaken um, that possibility um, of happening. So
Yeah.
I think the list gets it right for the most part, but that is to me a big missing link to it all. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean that kind of concludes kind of our topics for the day. I know we
Yeah.
had a little bit more broad topics, but it is kind of like a year, like we're halfway through. It's kind of time to talk about a little bit of stuff that we've seen this year
Yeah.
and how it pairs up to the rest of the year. And so, uh, with but we do have one more thing. Um,
Yes.
so I will give this back to Ezra for a brief second.
Yes.
Um, he is going to announce what I am going to be playing. This is our book club. It is his turn to pick a game for me, and I will
Yes.
be playing it. He will give me also a timeline on that, a general timeline on that. So yeah,
Okay.
take it
All
away.
right. So I'm doing something a little different. I'm gonna give Caleb
Okay.
a little bit more control over his fate.
Okay.
I have selected 4 games, all of which you have
Okay.
access to,
Okay.
and you can choose one.
Okay.
First up on the list, Scarlet
I'm ready.
Nexus.
Okay.
Second up on the list, Tales of Arise. Third, Stranger of Paradise Fantasy Origin.
Oh no.
And finally, Fire Emblem Engage. So you can choose out of those 4, unless you really don't want to play any of them. But I think you can
No.
find one that
Not.
you want to play in there.
See, this is a tough choice because I am going to probably throw out Fire Emblem right now.
Oh, you're committing to not Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Wow, I was like, of these, I was like, oh, maybe Fire Emblem's the most likely.
Um. See, this is the thing. It's like go for something that like Ezra really likes, or go for something that we can make fun of, and but also semi get me started on a rabbit hole of Final Fantasy games. Because then if I start Stranger of Paradise, then I'm gonna go down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna go in.
Listen,
You know.
I really like all of these games. I just want to point that
Okay.
out. Like
Okay.
I think Stranger of Paradise is really funny, but it's also a really fun game, and the narrative, while extremely campy, is also like kind of sweet and like just sort of
Mm.
fun. Like so like I wouldn't discount Stranger of Paradise. That's all I'm saying. Um,
Okay. I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to do Scarlet Nexus.
okay, Scarlet
I think that's the
Nexus.
one I'm doing.
I really like that game. Um, all right, so let me look it up on how long to beat, just so I don't like
That is definitely
rush
one of the
you.
backlog games. I mean, those were all backlog games, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I was definitely looking at. Um, yeah, I was definitely looking at all of these games, and I was like, what's how can I help Caleb a little bit here? I'm curious what was the process of elimination? Like how did you choose? Uh
honestly, I've so part of the thing is like Scarlet Nexus was like the starting point as to when my backlog really started to get
oh,
filled,
okay. Yeah.
and was one of those games that I really wish I could play day one and couldn't.
Yeah.
So just because of the time that it released, there's a lot of factors. So Scarlet Nexus is very similar to the Fire Emblem situation. Both have the same attitudes, but it's like that's a game that I just have stared at and looked at and have wanted to play, but I'm like, I'm too busy. I'm playing another game right now. I'm playing another game right now. You know. So, I mean, I'm assuming that's on PlayStation Plus, right?
Yeah, it's on PS Plus.
At this point, yeah.
Yeah. Um
So,
okay,
yeah.
so
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I want to so there are two like main stories in the game, two
Mhm.
paths. Um
Gotcha.
they both end in the same place,
Okay.
but they both also have like a bunch of different branches, and then like um there's basically like a section where there's like an exposition dump, and so you get all of the reveals from one story without any of the context.
Hmm.
So you still have to like play both stories to get the whole thing, but you'll understand it if you only play one story. So what I want to know is, do you want to just play one story?
Hmm. I would say probably not. I'd probably play both.
Play both. Okay, so let's say by
Keep in mind, I do have to go on vacation in the
oh When is
in a
that?
few weeks. It would be the first week of August. I forgot to mention that, and I just realized it as we were talking.
Okay. Let's say July 30th, August 13th, August 27th. Let's say have both stories completed by September 3rd.
Oh wow, okay.
Um, just to give you a little bit more time, because there is a whole week that's going to cut out there. And then, yeah, and that'll be like right before kind of the October, September rush. So maybe we can get one more book club in.
Probably.
And then, in October, Dragon Ball, Sonic, Metaphor come out. I don't know if you're going to play COD.
Play what? Oh,
Call of
COD?
Duty, yeah.
No, no, no.
Okay, cool.
But I probably will play Sonic.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Sonic's short. Sonic you could beat in an afternoon. Although I don't know how long the Shadow campaign is, so don't quote me on that. But the Sonic part of it, you pretty easy. Anyways, so okay, book club, Scarlet Nexus. I will be sure to boot it up at some point, just so I can jog my memory. I've played a lot of Scarlet Nexus, but just getting back into the groove. I think you'll really like it. I really liked this game. I was really excited for it when it came out. It didn't quite reach the top of my game of the year list, but it was definitely a contender for sure. So yeah. So anyways, back to you, Caleb.
Yeah. So that wraps up our episode here. Yeah. Any kind of final thoughts before we end the day?
No, just have fun, play games, just enjoy it while it lasts.
Right.
If you're paying attention to the world, there's just try to make it count. That's all I'll say. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much on the yeah. I just I'm looking forward to getting into Scarlet Nexus, and yeah, it's gonna
Cool.
be fun. I gotta finish up Sonic Frontiers DLC, which I'm at the end. So
Literally.
that's the first. so so that's definitely next podcast topic for me.
Yeah.
And then I'll be diving into Scarlet Nexus. I'll also be diving in at the same time, probably Xenoblade at this point. So,
Ooh.
but that's going to be some time.
Yeah.
That's going to take me some time.
Every Xenoblade, I feel like for you a Xenoblade game is like a year-long commitment. Like it's a it's a journey. And that's not a bad thing, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the possibility that you get sucked in.
Yeah.
Cuz Xeno 1 especially, there's a point where it's like, oh, this game's good, and then you just keep going. But yeah. Anyways, I'll stop rambling.
Oh no, you're all good. Alrighty, y'all. I'm Caleb, and I'm joined by Ezra today, and we're sorry we like that.